You know the old saying, trust and obey? Well, trust me and obey my findings. Actually, you're free to discuss anything. But basically, this is the second part of my 10-part video series. And basically, as I said in the first episode, was that basically I'd be looking at characters who seem to be villains. And I give my take on whether they should be vilified for the roles in the Rick Murray situation or not. This video will actually not have anything to do with villains. Basically, it's who you think might be villains, but are definitely not. And these are part of the honorable mentions, if you will. Time for the Villainy of Season 4, Part 2. Villainy is sometimes described as being evil or with massive evil intentions. Sometimes a villain can have good intentions and basically end up on the wrong side of things. But for many, there are characters who are actually described as possibly being evil without even realizing how much they really are evil and all that. There are quite a few examples of that. Let's start off with Toby Isaacs. Toby basically is the geek character in Degrassi. Basically, in season 1, he was supposed to be a breakout star with Ashley, his stepsister, as they basically were fighting tooth and nail for prominence in the relationship. Basically, when you got kind of a mixed family dynamic, you know how much things will be in. You know, Toby and Ashley fighting over each other's space. You know, Toby's dad with Ashley's mom and all that, and basically how Toby's mom probably feels about the relationship with who she's got, and Ashley's dad dealing with, you know, his homosexual tendencies. But for all that, Toby basically was put in the back burner. Basically, by season 4, Toby was in a few subplots that didn't make whole lot of sense. He was in the famous Breakfast Club episode in season 3, when basically he and Jimmy got in trouble for trying to change Jimmy's grades on the school computer. Toby would end up in the Breakfast Club without a relationship. In stark contrast, Shawn and Ellie dated, and so did Jimmy and Hazel. So basically, Toby was left all alone. And basically, no Kendra. It was partially explained, you know, it was never explained why Kendra left. Although people say the actress's parents were not happy with Kendra being in a sexual storyline with Toby. So basically, they pulled her off, and basically, they didn't think they could replace Kendra. So basically, they said, no, we won't worry about Kendra. But the fact of the matter is that Toby was basically lonely. In season 4, we learned that Toby was ditched by JT after JT decided to go with Danny, aka Liberty's brother, to have some fun, and basically thinking that Toby is just a geek and all that. Toby is a loner. Toby doesn't really get into the Rick Murray storyline until he is put on a assignment with Rick. They both are a part of the Wacky Brain team, and they both are fantasy playing weirdos who basically the girls don't want to be around. So Rick and Toby come up with a kissing contest. Whoever got the most kisses from girls and it would get role playing dice from the other person. Toby easily won because the students rather kiss a geek than a psycho. But Toby did feel a little bit shallow and basically felt bad for Rick because he was easily beating him. So he decided to pay Darcy $5 to kiss Rick. Rick feels great. Toby thinks he's done a good deed, but Spinner and Jay basically put him in a locker, saying that that's going to give Rick all the more power to try to go after other girls and all that. Nice job, weirdo. But anyway, Toby doesn't feel that great about it. Toby also starts getting involved in Time Stand Still Part 1 when Rick complains about Jimmy being on the team. Toby says, just go to Simpson. But Rick doesn't follow Toby's advice. Toby would soon have to pay the price for being Rick's friend, as Spinner and Jay are looking for Rick after they figured that Rick had spray painted their cars. So basically, Rick's problems are now Toby's problems. Toby gets a busted lip, and Rick tells Jimmy that basically they're abusing me, and now they're going to get to Toby to get to me. So basically, you got to leave Toby out of it. Toby would, of course, be shocked and awed that, Rick would come back to school after being painted and feathered and all that. And being told off by Rick saying that, Toby, I want to be at school for once. Toby doesn't know how to handle it. And then, unfortunately, he's with Emma and Shawn when basically Rick pulls the gun on Emma. Toby just yells stop and all that. He doesn't really make an effort to try to calm Rick down. That's for the other person involved. Toby probably feels bad that he didn't try to calm Rick down. Maybe if he calmed Rick down, Rick would have came to his senses. But Toby, throughout Time Stand Still Part 2 and Back in Black, is conflicted over how to feel about Rick. On the one hand, he had a friend for once after JT dumped him off. And on the other hand, he's a psycho. He doesn't know how to feel. And basically, Back in Black's subplot was basically about Toby dealing with his emotions after Rick's death. It doesn't help that JT and Danny basically bug him about it. But thankfully, though, while going by Jimmy's locker, Toby tells Manny about how he's being harassed by JT and Danny. Basically, that, they're mad at him for being friends with a psycho. Manny decides to set JT straight. You can argue also that Manny played a part in the Rick Murray situation, but not as a villain. Her role will be basically described more in detail when I talk about Emma in her video. So basically, Manny chews out JT. JT realizes what he's done, goes to Rick's visitation, tells Toby that it's not up to me to decide who did it. It's basically up to other people. And said that it doesn't matter what I think about Rick. It should never happen in the first place. And Toby nods. Toby and JT are best friends for life until season 6 when JT gets stabbed. Now, Toby didn't do anything villains. Okay, maybe he paid someone to kiss Rick, but he thought it was harmless. How was he supposed to know that it was going to be problematic? Like, nobody knew that. So basically, Toby can't be blamed. Next on the list is Shawn. Now, Shawn, of course, appeared in season 1 being a bad boy who Emma adored. But, of course, Shawn let his anger get to him after Jimmy bugs him one too many times. So he basically he has a fight with Jimmy, and then basically Emma's caught in the crossfire. Emma and Shawn break up. But by the middle season 2, Shawn and Emma are back as a couple. Unfortunately, Shawn would move away from Emma in season 3 and basically join the Candy Bandits, Jay's group, and all that. Betraying his things for Emma. And Emma says that he's pathetic. Emma was smart because, Shawn was pathetic. Like, he's letting his street bugness take over his clean personality. Sadly, though, it didn't end up that well. Shawn and Ellie hooked up after the Saturday detention thing, and basically they were a decent couple and all that. Shawn would not really get too involved in the Rick Murray situation until Time Stand Still Part 1. After Jay and Spinner find out that their cars have been tagged, and Shawn says, you better get that cleaned up and detailed because that's going to get on the car. They find out that it was probably Rick. Jay basically wants to go to Raj with it. Shawn mockingly says, oh, I'm going to go Raj. And you would think that he'll probably... Do you think he'll ask you about why Rick retaliated against you? And then Jay realizes that, in simple terms, basically, that Raj is going to know why Rick spray painted their cars. So basically, they couldn't convict themselves. So they said, screw Raj, we have to do this ourselves. So basically, Shawn hook, line, and sinker. But anyway, Shawn gets involved in Time Stand Still Part 2, being with Emma and Toby and walking towards Rick. Why would they do that? But basically, Shawn decides to be a hero and calmly tell Rick and try to get him off the ledge about the gun. And Shawn does the right thing. As a police officer, you have to calm down the situation and then shoot when you're threatened. Rick does not follow Shawn's advice. Rick basically says, I shot someone already, and then decides to point the gun at Emma. Shawn instinctively decides to wrestle for the gun. The gun goes off. What's happening? And then we see in a background scene when Toby gets interviewed by the police officer, the detective I meant, that Shawn has a bandage on his arm and Rad's just consoling him. Did the gunshot hit Shawn in the arm and cause something badly? But I mean, with a bullet, I think for sure that could not have been the true, because I mean, if that was true, then why was Shawn's arm in a cast and not just taken to the hospital? But anyway, it's revealed that Shawn's fine and that Rick had died somehow by the gun, and that Shawn's injury could have been residue from the firearm. So basically, Shawn doesn't know how to feel about things, especially in Back in Black. He's got the main plot line that basically all the papers say he's a hero, he's relishing it. He doesn't seem to feel anything about the shooting, even though Simpson tries to get him to open up. And then Shawn comforts a wailing Emma, because Emma's now realizing that the school's staring at her and all that. And basically, we probably thought that Shawn and Emma were going to be a couple, or maybe Emma fell for Shawn. Basically, Shawn would find out that his parents did something about it and talked to a TV crew. And basically, he was upset because they sent him to Toronto from Wasaga Beach. So he goes to confront them. The mother is played by Jane Eastwood, who's a stage icon in Canada and known for being a naughty and King of Kensington. I think the last season of King of Kensington, anyhow. But anyway, yeah. So she tells him that she had to send him to Toronto with his brother because he had done something bad in his like at Wasaga Beach, that he could have went to jail. So basically, we find out that he had an issue with Tyler and all that. Ellie calls Shawn out, saying that you and Tyler, your relationship, Tyler's a bully and all that. It just doesn't make sense. Shawn tells Ellie that I thought I had pissed myself when I saw blood, but when I felt something warm. No, I'm not doing this again. And he goes to the jet ski. And yeah, there is a split second that you see Shawn it's kind of a jump off, if you will. And basically, he may have jumped off to kill himself. Who knows? I didn't think that Shawn tried to commit suicide, but I guess he did. And Tyler saves him. Shawn realizes his mistakes and tells Emma that he's sorry for what he did. Emma says, ancient history. So basically, Shawn decides to tell his parents his guilt because he feels he's killed Rick. Not on purpose, but by accident. That basically the trigger, and he may have pulled the trigger. And basically, he stays in Wasaga Beach to deal with his emotions, leaving Emma and Ellie high and dry. Now, when I first did this, like a couple years ago, I was thinking, was Shawn actually hiding from the cops? Because he may have, A, he shot Rick, not intentionally, and B, that maybe he thought his comments to Jay, Spinner, and Alex about not telling Raj basically led to them pranking Rick. But I hardly doubt it. If the police had an issue with Shawn, they would have basically thrown him in prison from day frickin' one. On day frickin' one. So, yeah. So basically, yeah. And, Shawn came back in season 6, which shocked a lot of people. I mean, Shawn was brought back. Why? I don't know. It was just puzzling. You got to feel bad for Shawn and him having to deal with his PTSD. But they visioned that better than Toby's PTSD, like frig. They never followed on Toby's PTSD, and Toby basically didn't get much storylines. Poor guy. Next, you got Mrs. Murray. Yeah, I know there's no picture of her and all that. But basically, she was the glue that held the family together, if you will. With her unseen husband, who was never seen in any episode of Degrassi. She basically was one to comfort Rick and basically would coddle him. as it seemed. A lot of people think that basically Rick's mom and him had a weird relationship, kind of like an Oedipus or Odious thing. They said that on The Simpsons, but I can't remember. But anyhow, Rick's mom basically, pulled her son out of school and basically told Paige and Spinner in season 3 to stop seeing her son. Basically, stay away from my son, both of you. And all that. Now, Shawn, I forgot to mention, Shawn's not a villain. He may have inadvertently caused Jay, Spinner, and Alex to go after Rick. But remember, Rick flashed the sign and basically Jimmy's switched sides. That was when things were turned up to 11. So basically, that was just nothing and all that. And I know that Shawn would feel bad about that, even if he remembered. But anyway, Rick's mom basically was there for Rick. Rick's dad was a traveling salesman. Rick does not want to be like his dad. And Rick's mom basically is coddling him and all that. And basically, it seems that, she believes everything he says. Basically, there might be hate towards Rick's mom because Rick's telling her lies and all that shit. Of course, Rick is lying to his mom, as she said in Time Standstill Part 1, and to think I wanted you to transport you to the school. And Rick says, you worry too much, Mother. Me, Toby, and everyone else will be running the school. So basically, she was trying to get him to go to another school. At least she had the foresight. But I guess because she trusted Rick too much, if you will, Rick actually got away with it, in a sense. Of course, Rick's not telling his mom everything and all that. But more on that when I do my video on him. But anyway, Rick can be a pain in the butt. But anyway, his mother's not there. Like, after Rick goes home to out of his pain and feathers, or so we thought, she's not there, and he calls out to her. Why? It just doesn't make sense. So anyway, yeah. So basically, she finds out about Rick's death, and basically, it's like she's playing the victim and all that. I mean, yeah, her son's dead and all that, but basically, the fact that her son was a school shooter who shot somebody and nearly got someone else, it's hard to believe. I feel like, she was sickened, and she's like having to deal. Her and her husband have to deal with the ramifications. She was blissfully ignorant at the funeral, if you look at it. Basically, being all brave and all that. But I think it's just a trait because she knows that she's going to get, a lot of trouble. I mean, it's hard to say if Rick's parents got any bit of gratification after that. I mean, they basically may have had to leave Toronto because their son's a school shooter, and basically they would try to leave for somewhere where it's, they can't really talk about Rick Murray and all that stuff. But to me, I think her and her husband got kind of both ends of the stick. Yes, they got something. They may have gotten a settlement from the school board or police or something because, the school screwed up handling Rick and basically led Rick to being bullied. Maybe she got something because he was bullied and all that. I know the school board put the zero tolerance on Degrassi probably to appease Mrs. Murray and probably got Radish's head off. Although it must be said that maybe the school board felt something for Radish because, he would have been fired, not resigned. But maybe Mr. Murray had to deal with a fine, a suspended sentence, or even jail time for having a handgun that was easily accessible by Rick. How the hell did Rick know where it is? Basically, he didn't do a good job in fixing things. Pathetic. You can say that the Murrays were villainous in a sense because they didn't seem to care. But remember, they're getting a lot of shit on them. Do I think Rick's mom's a villain? No, but her relationship is strange with Rick. I think it's because of her husband's travels and being a salesman. And no, I don't think that Rick's dad had really abusive behavior that led to Rick having issues. I think Rick's issues stemmed from Paige basically trying to prevent Terry from being with Rick. And Rick thinks that Paige is just using her queen bee persona to make Terry follow her and all that crap as a shadow. Then next on the docket is Simpson. I mean, a lot, and maybe to an extent the staff members, because, maybe they felt bad that they didn't push hard enough for the fact that Rick was being bullied and that the administration should have done something about it. I mean, Snake knew in a sense because, when Toby gets busted open and comes to the quiz bowl thing, practice, Snake leaves the room. Maybe that's a sign that he's trying to talk to Radish and all that. But we never know completely. But in a sense, Simpson was concerned about Rick's well-being and the Whack Brain team's well-being. I mean, he didn't know about Rick's bad behavior at all. Like, he kind of knew about Rick's problems, but basically, he groomed Rick being with Emma, Heather Sinclair, and Toby for the Wacky Brain team, and of course, Jimmy taking over for Heather. But in a sense, Simpson kind of knew, but Simpson also saw the good in Rick, and basically knew that Rick wasn't a piece of crap and all that, like other people thought he was. Simpson saw the good side in people, and that's great. I mean, I gotta love Simpson for that. But unfortunately, there was a lot of anguish and all that. Simpson blamed himself in Time Stand Still Part 2 that he should have done more to help Rick out. And he knew that Rick was hurting and all that. Despite the fact that he blasted at Radish twice, once in the deleted scenes. And of course, that I'll get to when I talk about Radish. Basically, Snake cared enough. And, he took responsibility, like somebody else I know. And then basically, he was trying to calm down people in Back in Black. Craig and Toby and all them. An honorable mention also goes to Craig. I mean, like Craig, I feel for the guy. I mean, he had to see Jimmy's prone body in the hallway. And Craig should not have been at school in the first place because of, he was sick. But because Joey knew him had a falling out, he decided to take his chances and go to school. And Joey realizes that Craig was right about the whole thing. But anyway, yeah, trying to debate whether it's not about blame or recognition. It's just basically you got to talk about your feelings and all that. And he tries to get Shawn to open up, which Shawn rarely does. I mean, Simpson took some fall. And there's a good chance that Simpson may have made some testimony at a hearing for Radish that basically forced the school board to take notice and get rid of Radish. I doubt Simpson wanted the principal's job. I think maybe he balked at it because he thought he couldn't be the principal that he wanted to be. And of course, ironically, he would be the future principal in season 10. But, Simpson did okay and all that. Simpson knew that Emma was hiding stuff in secret. Because, I mean, Simpson isn't that stupid. Why? I know that Emma played him off. But, I mean, come on. You really think Simpson would have not noticed that Emma was wearing nice clothes out at 2 in the freaking morning? But anyway, yeah, Simpson, I think, wanted Radish to take accountability. I don't think he wanted Radish to get penalized. I think he just wanted Radish to admit his fault, which he never did. I guess, publicly. And, of course, lastly is Jimmy. People said, wait a tick. Jimmy was one of the bullies. And all that. He's the guy who helped Spinner dump Rick into the dumpster. That's true. Jimmy was all that. But, Jimmy had a good heart about it. I don't think he was really a villain. I think he was just trying to help the situation with Terry by being true to himself. Jimmy, had a thing for Terry, or so Rick thought in season 3. Jimmy basically said to Paige that we have to watch out and make sure Rick doesn't hurt Terry again, which he failed. Jimmy probably felt terrible about himself. But you got to think about it. Is that, Jimmy was trying to destroy Rick and all that. And he admitted as much when he came back to the school after his surgery. I mean, the guy had a point. I mean, Jimmy basically was trying to make things right, and it just failed. Jimmy is a good guy and all that. I don't think he's a terrible person. I think he's a good person with strong accountability and all that. But when you look at things, it's like, yeah, he was a bully, but he switched sides. I know, granted, it took it took Rick to tell him that, he's being abused and all that, and Toby's going to get the fall. And basically, that got Jimmy think that basically Spinner, Jay, and Alex are overdoing it and all that. Because it was down to those 3, if you will. I know that a lot of people said that it was possible that Jimmy was targeted too by Spinner and Jay because he turned the other side, to the dark side in their minds. But more on that when I talk about Spinner and Jay at length. Basically, Jimmy, paid the price. Basically, he was made a scapegoat and he got shot in the spine. If Rick really wanted to shoot Jimmy, Rick would have ended Jimmy's life and all that. But Jimmy survived. He's in a wheelchair for life. And basically, he comes back to the show and is decent and all that. Of course, Jimmy had it right when he got Matt. Spitter, he was right. Spitter was trying to alleviate his guilt. I mean, yeah. But Jimmy came back for seasons 5, 6, and 7. He wasn't the same Jimmy, but he was a fan favorite. I mean, who thought that the mega superstar Drake was Jimmy Brooks? Honestly. Who would have thought that? Nobody did. So anyway, those are some people who you can't really make a fill-in. But I have 8 fill-ins that are basically, you can make the argument, they're really fill-ins at all. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.